Quotations from text. This week, the boys and girls have been learning how to write quotations, and we've been dealing with words that someone has said up until today. So we had sentences like, Mom said, go to your room, and we put the quotation marks around the words that Mom said, which were go to your room. Today, we are going to learn how to write quotations not from what someone said, but rather from what someone has written. Let's have a look. Sometimes we want to quote what has been written instead of what someone has spoken. This works very much like direct quotations. The difference is the Mom said part, we're not going to say the author said because he didn't actually say it. So we're going to either choose one of two ways, according to, and then whatever the source is, and we'll talk about that here in a moment, or wrote the source. So if we're quoting Dr. Seuss, we might say, according to Dr. Seuss, or Dr. Seuss wrote, and then continue on just like it was a direct quotation. Let's take a look here at a couple of examples. Here's one. According to fossils tell of long ago, some fossils, like the fish, are actual parts of plants or animals that have turned to stone. Now, the words that came directly from the book are within the quotation marks. Some fossils, like the fish, are actual parts of plants or animals that have turned to stone. So we treat this just like someone had said it. Notice instead of saying, Mom said, we wrote according to, and then the book title. The book title is Fossils Tell of Long Ago, and book titles are underlined and it's capitalized properly there. We'll get into that shortly. So this is the Mom said part, and it works the same way. You have a comma that separates that part from the quotation. We have quotation marks. Capital letter begins it. Quotation marks go around all the words that are being quoted from the text, and the punctuation goes inside the final quotation marks. Now, boys and girls are told that they are allowed to quote from a text, but you only take a sentence or perhaps two at most. We are not copying an entire book and passing it off as our written work. So this is one way that we could do that. Here's another example. We have the settlers worked together to clear land by cutting down the forests, which they thought were full of danger, wrote Lynn Cherry. Now, the words Lynn Cherry actually wrote in her book were, the settlers worked together to clear land by cutting down the forests, which they thought were full of danger. So those words are within the quotation marks. We separate it with a comma, and then we wrote Lynn Cherry. We don't want to say said Lynn Cherry because Lynn Cherry didn't actually speak these words. She wrote them. So when we quote text, it's just like quoting direct speech, but we need to change the verb that we use, and we want to make sure that we're citing the source, whether it's the author in this case or the book. That sometimes books don't have an author that's readily available to look up. For instance, our math book would be hard to say who actually wrote the math book, so you would just use the title of the math book. This is how quotations from text are written in 4th grade.